I've just been reading a short biography of Proust by Benjamin Taylor, which is published by Yale University Press. It's been very well reviewed and it is eminently readable. And it makes me want to read À la recherche de la temps perdu in English, In Search of Lost Time again. I read it all, bar the last volume, I think in my very early 20s, and completely loved it. But and felt myself to be, a Proustian for a decade, and I probably read it twice over that decade. But it occurs to me, reading this book, that I think, as with all novels we read when we're young, we tend to gloss over those bits that are either less interesting to us then, or we don't have the context to understand them. And therefore, I feel as though it is time to reread. It's been 20 odd years. I am now 2 years from the age that Proust died, which seems extraordinary. But I do feel that it always needs rereading. But I've read many things since my sort of youth. I read most of Dostoevsky each decade. A lot of American writers, but I haven't reread Proust, and I think that's probably because why lots of people don't read Proust in the first place. It's a huge undertaking. And when I was 21, I was sitting around doing nothing. So, it doesn't take long when you've got nothing else to do apart from sit around and read Proust. But I was thinking, and this really sort of requires a response. I was wondering whether to do a Proust read-along. If anyone wants to read it with me, I don't mean personally. I mean, we'll, obviously, all over the world in our own homes. But maybe we should just give ourselves an objective of just 100 pages a week, and see how we go. It is, I learned from this, and I probably knew this anyway, but I've forgotten, it's 1.5 million words, which is a lot. But actually, interestingly, with the kind of serial novels that we have these days, especially in young adult literature, that's probably not that long. I mean, people have read 6 volumes or whatever it is, 7 volumes of Harry Potter, and etc. etc. Obviously, the intellectual energy that this needs is of orders of magnitude. And it is a tough read in a sense, one has to allow oneself to get into the rhythm of the prose, the long sentences, the involuted sentences, and it takes a bit of a while. And one has to be patient. There are very, very long pages just about the architecture of Baroque churches on the outskirts of Paris. There are sometimes the scenes go on for pages and pages. There's enormous sort of deconstructions. Obviously, that was not a contemporaneous word, of many things that that we might not find that interesting. But as I said, I think as readers, we find what is interesting to ourselves, and as we get older, more stuff has context, and therefore the novel comes into greater focus, which is hopefully what I'll find when I'm 50. Because in when I was 2021 reading it, it is profoundly, it is, and its major theme is sexual jealousy, but I was profoundly interested in sexual jealousy, in jealousy itself, and the notion that that we cannot possess the beloved, as much as our drives desire that of us, that people are essentially unpossessable, but love sort of demands that. And it is over and over again about that, desperate state, which I was certainly feeling at the time. But it's also about a lot of other things. But yeah, so I mean, if anyone fancies a read along, and I think we need at least 10-15 people, do leave a comment down there, and we don't have to start this week or next week or even next month, but if enough people are interested, we could do it, and it'd be interesting to discuss how we find it. And for those who are finding it quite a chore at first, before Swan in Love kicks in, which is a sort of novel, a sort of almost an independent novel in itself, and perhaps more obviously engaging and appealing with a bit more strength of narrative. People may need a little hand holding, and that might sound patronising, and I apologise, but I don't mean it to be. So yes, so Proust, it is said, and often underlined, that he is the greatest novelist of any country in any epoch, because I think Lucien Dorday said this, because he possesses everything that every other novelist possesses, and everything of his own. So if you're interested in the novel as a form, because essentially, it's a pivotal novel in terms of modernism. It's probably the first modernist novel, and it is pivotal in terms of the 20th century, because it is on the cusp of Freud and Henry Bergson. Henry Bergson was a cousin, I think, of Freud, of Proust. But Proust is the great psychologist of our time, and if we didn't, if Freud, because he wrote about sort of, I don't know, he isn't as hard work, as it were, as Proust, and claimed to have said things, claimed to have understood things that we don't. I'm not making much sense here, but I think the point is if Freud hadn't existed, we would be richer people, because we might have read more Proust. I.e., Proust makes us better people, I think, and Freud just confuses us. But that's it, really. A Proust read along. It is worth it, but it will take us some time. But if you don't fancy the read along, that doesn't mean you shouldn't give it a go at some point, because he is, as I said, the greatest novelist of all time. And just another note, Proust thinks, the greatest novel of all time is The Idiot by Dostoevsky. And I would have to say, although I think The Idiot is deeply flawed, it is my favourite Dostoevsky novelist, and I love Dostoevsky enormously. So if I'm going to, if I'm going to set aside some other novels that I love deeply, but I think ultimately are less profound, I think I might be in agreement that, other than À la recherche de la temps perdu, The Idiot by Dostoevsky is the greatest novel of all time. So Proust and I are in accord on that one. Okay. But yeah, so let me know or not, and thank you very much.